The alarm screamed at 5:30 in the morning, and Elena Martinez slapped it silent with the kind of practiced precision that came from too many early shifts and not enough sleep. The Chicago winter pressed against her bedroom window, frost creating delicate patterns on the glass that would have been beautiful if she had time to notice them. She didn't. Her daughter's breathing was soft and even from the mattress on the floor beside her bed. Lily was 5 years old and still small enough that Elena could convince herself the mattress on the floor was an adventure, a camping trip that happened every night. The truth was simpler and harder. Elena couldn't afford a second bed frame. Not yet. Maybe next month, if she picked up enough shifts at Sapphire, if her tips were good, if nothing broke or needed fixing or came due. She moved through her morning routine in the dark, not wanting to wake Lily before she had to. Shower in water that never quite got hot enough. Instant coffee that tasted like burnt regret. A protein bar she didn't taste because she was too busy mentally calculating her schedule. 5 hours at Sapphire tonight. The exclusive private club where Chicago's elite went to be seen by the right people and unseen by everyone else. If she was lucky, she'd clear 300 in tips. If she was very lucky, one of the high rollers would be generous. She needed to be very lucky. Rent was due in 4 days, and she was 200 short. Elena pulled on her black dress uniform, the one she kept pristine because it was the only one she owned. She'd learned early in her 3 months at Sapphire that presentation was everything. The clientele noticed scuffed shoes, wrinkled fabric, chipped nail polish. They noticed, and they judged, and their judgments became your tips. In the narrow closet, pushed to the back behind practical flats and worn sneakers, was a shoebox. Elena pulled it out and sat on the edge of her bed, the cardboard soft with age. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper that had yellowed over the years, were the red heels. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Her mother had bought them in Madrid 23 years ago, before Elena was born. Before her parents immigrated to America chasing dreams that would eventually crumble under the weight of reality. Her mother had worn them exactly twice. Once to a New Year's Eve party where she'd met Elena's father, and once to Elena's quinceañera, where she'd danced with such joy that Elena could still remember the sound of her laughter. Cancer had taken her mother 4 years ago. The heels were all Elena had left that still smelled faintly of her perfume, that still carried the ghost of her presence. She'd never worn them. They felt too precious, too fragile, too much like a connection to a past she couldn't afford to dwell on when survival demanded she stay focused on the present. But today was different. Today, she needed the armor. Because today was the day Marcus got out of prison. Her ex-boyfriend, Lily's father. The man whose hands had left bruises on Elena's throat 3 years ago, whose rage had finally crossed the line from controlling to dangerous. The man she'd testified against, who'd been sentenced to 36 months and had served 24 with good behavior. The Chicago Police Department had called yesterday to inform her of his release. Standard procedure for domestic violence cases. They'd offered her resources, a victim's advocate, suggestions for a restraining order renewal. They'd been professional and sympathetic, and utterly useless because Elena knew the truth. A piece of paper wouldn't stop Marcus if he wanted to find her. So today, she would wear the red heels. She would walk into Sapphire with her spine straight, and her chin up, and her mother's courage wrapped around her feet. She would pretend she wasn't afraid. She would smile at the wealthy patrons and pour their expensive drinks and collect her tips. And she would not let fear paralyze her. She couldn't afford to be paralyzed. She had Lily to think about. "Mama?" The small voice came from the mattress on the floor. Lily sat up, her dark curls wild around her face, her brown eyes still heavy with sleep. "Why are you dressed already?" Elena set the shoebox aside and knelt beside her daughter, smoothing the tangled curls. I have to work tonight, baby, remember? Mrs. Chen is going to watch you. Lily's face fell. Mrs. Chen was kind but ancient, and her apartment smelled like mothballs and boiled vegetables. Again? The word was a knife between Elena's ribs. Again. Always again. How many nights had Lily spent in Mrs. Chen's apartment, watching cartoons she'd seen a dozen times while her mother served drinks to people who spent more on a single bottle of wine than Elena made in a week? I'm sorry, sweetheart, Elena whispered, pulling Lily into her arms. Just a few more months, okay? Then Mama will have enough saved, and maybe I can work fewer nights. It was a lie, or close enough to one. There would never be enough saved. There would always be another expense, another crisis, another reason why financial security remained just out of reach. But Lily was 5, and she deserved hope, even if it was false. Elena got Lily fed and dressed, walked her down 2 flights of stairs to Mrs. Chen's apartment, and tried not to see the disappointment in her daughter's eyes when the door closed between them. Then she was out on the street, the February wind cutting through her coat, the red heels clicking against the sidewalk with each step. The sound made her feel powerful, made her feel seen, made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she could face whatever this day brought. Sapphire occupied the top 3 floors of a pre-war building in River North, its entrance marked by nothing more than a bronze plaque and a doorman who knew every member by name. Elena had been working there for 3 months and still felt like an imposter every time she walked through those doors. The club catered to a specific clientele: old money, new money, and the kind of money that didn't have a legal origin story. Politicians rubbed shoulders with hedge fund managers. Tech entrepreneurs shared tables with men whose tailored suits couldn't quite hide the danger that clung to them like cologne. Elena had learned not to ask questions. She'd learned to be invisible, professional, efficient. She'd learned that the less she knew about the people she served, the safer she would be. Nice shoes, said Marco, the floor manager, when Elena arrived for her shift. His eyes lingered on the red heels just a fraction too long, and Elena resisted the urge to cross her arms over her chest. Marco was harmless mostly, but he had wandering eyes and a habit of standing too close. Thanks, she said, moving past him toward the employee area to stash her coat and purse. Big night tonight, Marco called after her. Private event in the Platinum Room. Mr. Russo specifically requested our best servers. Elena's stomach tightened. The Platinum Room was where the real power players gathered, where deals were made that would never appear on any ledger, where the drinks cost more than her monthly rent, and the tips could be life-changing. She'd only worked the Platinum Room twice, and both times she'd been so nervous her hands had shaken while pouring champagne. Who else is working it? She asked, hoping there would be more experienced servers to handle the heavy lifting. Marco's smile didn't reach his eyes. Just you. Mr. Russo was very specific. He wants the new girl, the one with the red heels. The word sent ice down Elena's spine. Mr. Russo had noticed her heels. Mr. Russo, the owner of Sapphire, the man whose name was spoken in whispers even here, in his own establishment. The man who supposedly had connections to every powerful family in Chicago. The man Elena had successfully avoided for 3 months by keeping her head down and blending into the background. He'd noticed her heels. I don't understand, Elena said, her voice carefully neutral. How would he know about my shoes? He's not even here yet. Marco's expression shifted, something like pity crossing his face. Mr. Russo is always here, Elena. He sees everything. The Platinum Room lived up to its name. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Chicago's skyline, the city lights spreading out like a jeweled blanket against the dark February night. The furniture was butter-soft leather in deep charcoal. The bar was backlit onyx. Art that Elena suspected was museum quality hung on walls painted the color of smoke. And at the center of it all was a single table, round and intimate, set for 8. Elena checked her reflection in the bar mirror, smoothing her dress, adjusting the small apron at her waist. The red heels gleamed under the recessed lighting, bold and defiant. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and waited. The first guests arrived at 8. 3 men in suits that probably cost more than Elena's annual salary, speaking in low voices about hedge funds and municipal bonds. She served them scotch and tried to be invisible. More guests filtered in over the next 30 minutes. A woman in a dress that probably had its own insurance policy. 2 more men who had the unmistakable bearing of people accustomed to violence. A younger man with nervous eyes who kept checking his phone. And then, at exactly 8:45, the atmosphere in the room changed. Elena felt it before she saw him. The way the other guests straightened, the way their conversations faltered for just a moment before resuming at a more careful volume, the way the air itself seemed to thicken with attention. Dominic Russo entered the Platinum Room like he owned it, which he did, but it was more than that. He entered like he owned the entire city, like every person in the room existed at his discretion, like the laws of ordinary men bent around him the way light bends around a black hole. He was 35, but looked younger, his dark hair perfectly cut, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass. He wore a charcoal suit that fit him like it had been created by someone who understood exactly what fabric could do to emphasize broad shoulders and lean muscle. But it was his eyes that stopped Elena's breath in her throat. Dark, intelligent, and utterly cold. They swept the room with practiced efficiency, cataloging every person, every detail, every potential threat or opportunity. And when those eyes landed on Elena, they stopped. She forgot how to breathe, forgot how to move, forgot everything except the weight of that gaze, the way it seemed to peel back every layer of protection she'd built around herself, the way it saw her in a way that made her feel simultaneously exposed and seen, actually seen. His eyes dropped to her feet, to the red heels, and something changed in his expression, something too quick and too subtle for Elena to name. Not quite a smile, not quite interest, something more like recognition, as if he'd been waiting for her without knowing he was waiting. "Good evening, Mr. Russo," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "May I get you a drink?" He moved toward her, and every instinct in Elena's body screamed at her to step back, to maintain distance, to protect herself. But she held her ground because she needed this job, needed these tips, needed to prove she wasn't the kind of woman who ran from powerful men, even when every survival instinct she had told her she should. "McAllen 25, he said, his voice low and smooth with the barest hint of an Italian accent. "Neat." She nodded and turned toward the bar, acutely aware that he hadn't moved, that he was still watching her. Her hands didn't shake as she poured the scotch, which was a small miracle. She could feel the weight of every eye in the room, could sense the curiosity and speculation. Who was she? Why was she here? What had she done to capture Dominic Russo's attention? She didn't know the answers to any of those questions. She only knew that when she turned back to deliver his drink, he was sitting at the head of the table, and the empty chair to his right had been left conspicuously vacant. "Join me," he said. Not a request, a command dressed up in polite words. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. "Mr. Russo, I'm working. I need to..." "Sit." His eyes held hers, and Elena saw something in them that terrified her more than anger or violence. She saw certainty, the absolute conviction that she would obey, that resistance was futile, that her will was irrelevant against his. On legs that didn't feel quite steady, Elena sat. The dinner proceeded around them like theater, conversations flowing about business deals and political maneuvering that Elena only partially understood. She was acutely aware of Dominic beside her, the heat of his body, the subtle scent of his cologne, something woody and expensive that made her think of old forests and older power. He didn't touch her, didn't speak to her beyond the occasional quiet instruction to refill someone's wine or clear a plate. But his attention never fully left her. Even when he was deep in conversation with the man across the table about shipping contracts and port access, Elena could feel the thread of his awareness, taut and humming between them. "The red heels," he said finally, during a lull in conversation. "They're vintage." It wasn't a question, but Elena answered anyway. "They were my mother's." His eyes sharpened with interest. She had good taste. She had dreams, Elena corrected before she could stop herself. The shoes outlasted them. Silence fell across the table. The other guests exchanged glances, clearly shocked that someone, especially a server, would speak to Dominic Russo with such directness. Elena's heart raced as she realized her mistake. This was a man who commanded absolute deference. She'd just handed him something raw and honest and completely inappropriate for their respective positions. But when she dared to look at him, his expression had softened almost imperceptibly. "Dreams often break," he said quietly. "The question is what we build from the pieces." Before Elena could respond, the woman in the expensive dress leaned forward, her voice cutting through the moment. "Dominic, darling, you're monopolizing the help. I need another martini." The words were meant to be playful, but Elena heard the edge beneath them. The reminder of her place. The subtle assertion that whatever moment had just passed between Elena and Dominic was inappropriate, impossible, absurd. Elena stood, grateful for the excuse to put distance between herself and the man whose attention felt like standing too close to a fire. She mixed the martini with practiced efficiency, her mind racing. Dominic Russo had noticed her heels, had requested her specifically, had commanded her to sit beside him like she belonged there. And now every person in the room was watching her with calculation in their eyes, trying to determine what game he was playing and what role she was meant to serve in it. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of refilled drinks and cleared plates. Elena moved through the room on autopilot, her mind stuck on the way Dominic had looked at her, the way he'd spoken about dreams and broken pieces. When the last guests finally departed around midnight, Elena began the cleanup process, her feet aching in the beautiful, impractical red heels. She was stacking plates when she realized she wasn't alone. Dominic stood by the windows, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city below. Without his guests as witnesses, he seemed different somehow. Less performative. More real. "You can go," he said without turning. "Marco will handle the cleanup." Elena should have left, should have grabbed her coat and purse and fled before whatever this was could develop into something more complicated, more dangerous. But her mouth moved before her brain could catch up. "Why did you ask for me?" He turned then, and the city lights behind him cast his face in shadow, making him look like something from a Renaissance painting. Beautiful, and terrible, and utterly untouchable. "Because you looked afraid when you walked in tonight," he said simply. "And then, you wore the red heels anyway." The honesty of it stunned her. "I don't understand." "Courage," he said, moving toward her with the fluid grace of a predator. "Real courage isn't the absence of fear, Elena. It's being terrified and showing up anyway, in red heels that make you visible when every instinct tells you to hide." He knew her name. Of course he knew her name. He knew everything. "How do you know I'm afraid?" she whispered. He stopped close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, close enough that his presence seemed to fill all the space around her. "Because you're running from something. I recognize the signs. The question is whether you're running from something in your past or something in your present." "Both," Elena admitted before she could stop herself. "But I'm done running. Something like approval flickered across his face. Good. Because I don't chase, Elena. I claim. The words should have terrified her, should have sent her fleeing from the room, from the building, from this entire situation. But instead they sent heat curling through her stomach. Dangerous and intoxicating. I should go, she managed. My daughter. Lily, he said, and Elena's blood ran cold. 5 years old, stays with Mrs. Chen when you work nights, likes strawberry ice cream and that ridiculous cartoon about talking dogs. The room spun slightly. He knew about Lily, knew her name, her age, her preferences, which meant he'd been watching Elena, investigating her, learning everything there was to know about her life. How? I'm a careful man, Dominic said, his voice gentle despite the terrifying implications of his words. And when something interests me, I make it my business to understand it completely. I'm not a thing to be understood, Elena said, finding her spine. I'm a person, a mother, someone who just wants to work hard and take care of her daughter and be left alone. I know. His hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone with unexpected tenderness. But alone isn't safe, Elena. Not for you. Not anymore. What are you talking about? His eyes darkened. Marcus Reeves, released from Stateville Correctional Center yesterday morning, violated his parole by leaving Illinois 8 hours later. Current whereabouts unknown, but Chicago PD suspects he's looking for you. Terror flooded Elena's system, cold and paralyzing. How do you know that? Because I know everything that happens in my city, Dominic said simply, and because I've had people watching you since you walked in here 3 months ago. The admission should have frightened her. Instead, it sparked anger, hot and cleansing. Elena stepped back, breaking contact with his hand. You had no right. My life, my daughter, were not your concern. You became my concern the moment you stepped into my club wearing your mother's courage on your feet. His expression was unreadable. You became my concern when I saw how hard you work, how you never complain, how you smile at entitled assholes who treat you like furniture. You became my concern when I learned about Marcus, about what he did to you, about the fact that a piece of paper is all that's standing between you and a man who's going to hurt you again. A restraining order is worthless, Dominic cut in, his voice hard. Paper doesn't stop men like Marcus. Fear does. Pain does. The certain knowledge that touching you will result in consequences he can't survive. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. What are you saying? Dominic moved closer again, and this time Elena didn't step back. Couldn't step back. Was held in place by the intensity of his gaze, by the promise implicit in his words. I'm saying I can protect you, he said softly. You and Lily. I can make sure Marcus never comes within a mile of either of you. I can give you security, resources, a life where you don't have to count tips to make rent. Why? Elena whispered. Why would you do that for me? His smile was slight and somehow sad. Because you showed up in red heels on the day you were most afraid. Because you have the kind of courage that's rare in my world. Because when I look at you, I see something I thought was extinct. Genuine goodness that hasn't been corrupted yet. Yet, Elena echoed, catching the implication. Meaning you'll corrupt it? Meaning the world I live in corrupts everything eventually. His hand found hers, his fingers warm against her cold skin. But I can keep you safe while it does. I can make sure you and Lily want for nothing. All you have to do is say yes. Yes to what, exactly? His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand, the gesture somehow more intimate than a kiss. To letting me into your life, to accepting my protection, to understanding that from this moment forward, you're under my care. The word choice was deliberate, not ownership, not control. Care. as if he understood that Elena had been controlled enough for one lifetime, that what she needed was something different. "And if I say no?" she asked, needing to know if she actually had a choice. Dominic released her hand, stepping back. "Then you walk out of here tonight, and I'll do nothing to stop you. You'll never see me again unless you come to work your shifts. I'll have my people keep an eye on Marcus from a distance. Make sure he doesn't hurt you. But I won't interfere in your life." The offer sounded genuine, but Elena knew better than to trust easy promises from dangerous men. "Why do I feel like there's a but coming?" "But," Dominic said, his eyes holding hers, "you'll spend every day looking over your shoulder. You'll wonder if every shadow is Marcus. You'll lie awake at night worrying that he'll find a way to get to Lily. You'll exhaust yourself working multiple jobs because one is never enough. And eventually, your courage will run out, Elena. Everyone's does." He was right, and they both knew it. Elena was already exhausted, already terrified, already one crisis away from complete collapse. "I don't even know you," she said weakly. "Then let me tell you who I am." Dominic moved to the windows, looking out at his city. "I'm the man your mother would have warned you about. I'm someone who operates outside the law when the law is inconvenient. I have money that comes from sources you'd probably prefer not to think about. I have enemies who would use anyone I care about to hurt me." He turned back to her. "But I'm also someone who keeps my word. Someone who protects what's mine with everything I have. Someone who has been watching you for 3 months and has never once seen you compromise your integrity, even when it would have been easier to do so. You're good, Elena, and I want to protect that goodness, even if just being near me might tarnish it." Elena looked down at the red heels, at the last piece of her mother she had left. What would her mother have said about this? About accepting help from a man like Dominic Russo? But her mother had fled one dangerous situation for another, chasing a dream that eventually killed her. Maybe the lesson wasn't to avoid danger. Maybe it was to choose which danger to face on your own terms. "I need to think," Elena said finally. Dominic nodded as if he'd expected that answer. "Take the week." "But Elena?" He moved close one more time, his hand coming up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. "Marcus is looking for you. Whatever you decide about me, promise you'll be careful. Promise you won't walk home alone at night. Promise you'll keep Lily close." "I promise," Elena whispered, and his hand lingered against her cheek for just a moment longer before he stepped back. "Marco will call you a car," he said, suddenly all business again. "Go home. Hold your daughter. Think about what you want your life to look like." Elena gathered her things, her mind churning. At the door, she paused and looked back at him. He was once again silhouetted against the city lights, powerful and untouchable. "The red heels," she said. "You really noticed them?" His smile was small but genuine. "I haven't been able to stop looking at them all night, or the woman brave enough to wear them." Elena lay awake in her bed that night, Lily's soft breathing a comfort beside her. Through the thin walls of her apartment, she could hear her neighbors fighting, a baby crying, the constant background noise of poverty that never quite faded. She thought about Dominic's offer, about protection and resources, and a life where she didn't have to choose between groceries and electricity. She thought about the way he'd looked at her, the way he'd spoken about courage and goodness as if they were rare treasures. She thought about Marcus, somewhere out there in the city, looking for her with violence in his heart. And she thought about the red heels, sitting in their box in her closet. The courage her mother had given her, the reminder that sometimes survival meant being visible, even when visibility was dangerous. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. An unknown number. Elena's heart raced as she opened the message. "2 of my men are outside your building tonight. They'll keep watch until morning. Sleep well, Elena. D." She moved to her window and looked down at the street. Sure enough, a black SUV was parked across from her building, its engine running against the February cold. As she watched, the driver's side window rolled down slightly, and a man in a dark suit nodded up at her, acknowledging her presence. Dominic had said he wouldn't interfere if she said no. But he also wasn't going to let Marcus hurt her while she made her decision. Elena closed the curtain and returned to bed, pulling Lily close. For the first time in 3 years, she fell asleep quickly, without checking the door locks 3 times, without startling at every sound from the hallway. She fell asleep knowing someone was watching over them. Someone dangerous, yes. Someone whose world she didn't understand. But someone who had seen her courage and valued it enough to protect her before she'd even agreed to let him. In the morning, she would have to make a decision. But tonight, wrapped in the knowledge that she and Lily were safe, Elena let herself rest. The red heels had been noticed, and everything had changed. Elena woke to sunlight streaming through her window and the smell of coffee she hadn't made. For a disoriented moment, she thought she was dreaming. Then she heard movement in her kitchen, careful, quiet movement that didn't belong. Her heart slammed into her throat. She grabbed her phone, ready to dial 911, when Lily's voice floated down the hallway, bright and cheerful. "Is that for my mama?" "It is," came a woman's voice, professional and warm. "She works very hard. She deserves good coffee." Elena threw on her robe and rushed to the kitchen to find a woman in her 40s, dressed in casual but expensive clothes, pouring coffee into Elena's chipped mugs. Lily sat at their small table, swinging her legs and eating what appeared to be fresh pastries from a white bakery box. "Who are you?" Elena demanded, positioning herself between the stranger and her daughter. "How did you get in here?" The woman set down the coffee pot and smiled, completely unfazed by Elena's defensive posture. "My name is Sophia. Mr. Russo sent me. I'm a security consultant, but this morning I'm playing breakfast delivery." She gestured to the spread on the counter. Fresh fruit, pastries, real cream for the coffee, orange juice in a glass bottle. "He thought you might be hungry." Elena's hands trembled slightly. "You can't just break into my apartment." "I didn't break in. Mrs. Chen let me in with her spare key." Sophia's expression softened. "I know this is startling, but Mr. Russo wanted to make sure you and Lily were safe. The men outside watched your building all night. But he thought it would be less alarming if I came in to check on you rather than 2 large men in suits." Elena wanted to be angry, wanted to rage about boundaries and privacy and the arrogance of assuming she needed to be checked on. But Lily was eating a chocolate croissant with an expression of pure bliss, and the coffee smelled better than anything Elena could afford to buy. And the truth was that having someone outside watching through the cold February night made her feel safer than she had in years. "Did anything happen?" Elena asked quietly. "Last night?" Sophia's expression turned serious. "A man matching Marcus Reeves's description was seen in your neighborhood around 3 in the morning. He walked past your building twice. My colleagues made sure he saw them and understood they were watching. He left." Elena's knees went weak. She sank into a chair beside Lily, her hand automatically reaching to smooth her daughter's hair. Marcus had been here, had walked past their building while they slept. If Dominic's men hadn't been watching. "Thank you," Elena whispered. "Don't thank me. Thank Mr. Russo." Sophia poured coffee and placed it in front of Elena. "He also asked me to give you this." She produced a sleek black phone, newer and more expensive than anything Elena owned. "It's already programmed with important numbers. Mr. Russo's direct line. Mine. Emergency services. If you need anything at all, you call." Elena stared at the phone, understanding what it represented. Dominic was drawing her into his world, one gift at a time. Coffee and pastries, guards outside her building, a phone that connected her directly to him. "I haven't decided yet," Elena said, "about his offer." Sophia's smile was knowing. He knows. But that doesn't mean he's going to let Marcus hurt you while you're deciding. Mr. Russo is many things, but patient when someone he cares about is in danger isn't one of them. After Sophia left, Elena went through her morning routine in a daze. She got Lily dressed for kindergarten, packed her lunch, walked her to the bus stop with the black SUV following at a discreet distance. The other mothers noticed and whispered, their eyes curious and judgmental. Elena held her head high and ignored them. At home, she showered and changed for her day shift at the diner where she worked lunches 4 days a week. The tips were smaller than at Sapphire, but it was steady income, and the owner didn't ask questions about her past. Her phone, her regular phone, not the sleek black one Dominic had sent, buzzed with a text from Marco. "Need you tonight. VIP party in the Platinum Room. Double rate." Elena stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the screen. Going back to Sapphire meant seeing Dominic, meant facing the decision she'd been putting off, meant choosing between the life she'd built on her own terms and the protection he was offering. The black phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number that she somehow knew was Dominic. "If you come to work tonight, I need to see you first. There's something you need to know about Marcus." D. Elena's hands tightened on both phones. She was being pulled into Dominic's orbit whether she wanted to be or not. Marcus had made sure of that when he'd walked past her building in the middle of the night. She typed a response on the black phone. "What time?" The reply came instantly. 6. I'll send a car." The car that arrived at 5:45 wasn't one of the black SUVs she'd seen before. It was a sleek Mercedes sedan with leather seats that probably cost more than her entire apartment's furniture combined. The driver was a woman this time, professional and silent, who navigated Chicago's evening traffic with practiced efficiency. They didn't go to Sapphire. Instead, they drove to a residential neighborhood Elena had only seen in magazines. Tree-lined streets with historic mansions set back from the road, gates and hedges ensuring privacy. The car pulled up to a wrought iron gate that opened automatically, revealing a driveway that curved through manicured grounds to a stone mansion that looked like it had been transplanted from Europe. "Mr. Russo's home," the driver said, the first words she'd spoken. "He's waiting for you in the library." Elena's stomach twisted with nerves as she exited the car. The red heels clicked against the stone steps. She'd worn them again, needing their courage, as a member of the household staff opened the massive front door before she could knock. "Miss Martinez, please, follow me." The interior of Dominic's home was everything Elena had expected and nothing she was prepared for. Soaring ceilings with exposed beams, art that belonged in museums, furniture that managed to look both antique and comfortable. But what struck her most was how it felt lived in despite its grandeur. Books stacked on side tables, a coffee mug left on a coaster, a throw blanket draped over a leather sofa. This wasn't just a showpiece. This was a home. The library was a 2-story room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a rolling ladder, and windows that overlooked a garden just beginning to show the first hints of spring. Dominic stood by those windows, dressed more casually than she'd seen him before. Dark jeans, a charcoal sweater, no tie. He looked younger somehow, less intimidating, until he turned, and she saw his expression. Marcus made a move, he said without preamble. This afternoon, he approached Lily's kindergarten. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. The world tilted sideways. Elena grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. "What?" He didn't get close. My people intercepted him 3 blocks away. But he was watching the school, Elena. He knows where she goes. He knows her schedule. Elena's vision blurred with tears of rage and terror. Did he see her? Did she see him? No. Dominic crossed the room, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "She's safe. I have someone with her now. Someone who looks like a teacher's aide. She won't know anything is wrong. Where is she? Elena's voice cracked. I need to see her. She's here, Dominic said softly. In the kitchen with my housekeeper Maria. She's making cookies and thinks this is the most exciting adventure of her life. Elena stared at him, processing. He'd brought Lily here, to his home, had essentially kidnapped her daughter from school and brought her to his fortress without asking Elena's permission. She should have been furious. Should have screamed at him for overstepping, for making decisions about her child without consulting her. But all she felt was overwhelming relief. Can I see her? Elena whispered. Dominic's hand slid from her shoulders to take hers. Of course. But first, I need you to understand something. Marcus isn't going to stop. The restraining order means nothing to him. The threat of going back to prison means nothing to him. He's fixated on you, on reclaiming what he thinks belongs to him. I don't belong to him, Elena said fiercely. I know. Dominic's eyes held hers. But he doesn't. And he's not going to stop until someone makes him stop. The implication was clear. Someone like Dominic. Someone with the resources and ruthlessness to end the threat Marcus represented. What are you saying? Elena asked, though she already knew. I'm saying you and Lily stay here. Tonight. Tomorrow. As long as it takes for me to handle Marcus. His voice was gentle but firm. I'm saying you let me protect you both the way you should have been protected 3 years ago. The way the system failed to protect you. Elena pulled her hands free, pacing to the windows. From here, she could see the ground stretching into the twilight, could see the discreet security cameras, the high fence disguised by hedges, the careful architecture of safety. If I agree to this, she said slowly, I'm agreeing to enter your world, to be someone you protect, someone you care for. Yes? And what do you get out of this, Dominic? What do you want from me? The question hung in the air between them. Elena turned to face him, needing to see his expression when he answered. Dominic moved toward her slowly, like approaching something wild and easily startled. I get to keep you safe. I get to see you smile without fear behind it. I get to watch Lily grow up without looking over her shoulder. He stopped close enough that Elena could feel his warmth. And maybe, if you choose to give it, I get something I haven't had in a very long time. What's that? A reason to come home, he said simply. A reason to build something that isn't just about power and control. A reason to remember what it feels like to want something more than money or respect or fear. The honesty in his voice broke something open inside Elena. This wasn't manipulation. This was vulnerability from a man who probably showed it to very few people. I'm not going to be your mistress, Elena said firmly. I'm not going to be the woman you keep in a nice apartment and visit when it's convenient. If I'm going to do this, if I'm going to let you into my life, and Lily's life, it has to be real. Something like relief crossed Dominic's face. I don't want a mistress, Elena. I want... He paused, seeming to search for the right words. I want what my parents had before my father's world destroyed it. I want mornings with coffee, and someone who sees me as more than what I can provide, or what I can do. I want to be the man who makes you feel safe enough to wear red heels even on your hardest days. Elena's breath caught. You don't even really know me. I know you work 2 jobs to give Lily everything you can. I know you're taking online classes at night to finish your degree, even though you're exhausted. I know you send money to your cousin in Arizona who's going through cancer treatment. I know you haven't bought yourself new clothes in 8 months because Lily needed winter boots. His eyes held hers. I know you're strong and brave and good, and those qualities are rare in my world. Precious. How do you know all that? Because I had you investigated, yes. But also because I watched you. Really watched you. The way you treat everyone with kindness even when they don't deserve it. The way you never complain. The way you smile at Lily through your exhaustion because you don't want her to see how hard everything is. Tears spilled down Elena's cheeks. No one had seen her, really seen her, in so long. She'd been invisible for years, just another struggling single mother, another waitress, another face in the crowd. Dominic's thumb brushed away her tears, his touch impossibly gentle. Let me protect you, Elena. Let me give you a life where you don't have to be invisible anymore. Where you can wear red heels every day if you want to. Mama! Lily's voice echoed from the hallway, and then she was bursting into the library, chocolate on her face and joy in her eyes. Mama, I made cookies, and Miss Maria says I can have one for dessert if I eat all my vegetables. Elena dropped to her knees and pulled her daughter into her arms, breathing in the scent of her shampoo and chocolate and safety. Did you have fun, baby? So much fun. Lily pulled back, her eyes wide. This house is so big, Mama, it has a pool. And Miss Maria says maybe tomorrow I can swim if it's okay with you. Can I? Please? Elena looked up at Dominic over Lily's head. He stood there watching them with an expression that made her heart ache, longing mixed with something like pain, as if the sight of them together reminded him of something he'd lost or never had. We'll see, sweetheart, Elena said softly. Maria appeared in the doorway, a kind-faced woman in her 60s who reminded Elena somehow of her own mother. Dinner is ready when you are, Mr. Russo. I set the table in the breakfast room. It's less formal. Thank you, Maria. Dominic's eyes never left Elena and Lily. We'll be right there. Dinner was surreal. Elena sat at a table that could have seated 12 but was set intimately for 3, with Lily chattering happily about cookies and the palace they were in. Dominic engaged with her daughter with surprising ease, asking about her favorite colors and whether she liked puzzles, listening to her rambling stories about kindergarten with genuine attention. And Elena watched, her heart doing dangerous things in her chest, as she saw glimpses of the man Dominic could have been if his world had been different. The man he might still be, underneath all the danger and control. After dinner, Maria took Lily to get ready for bed in one of the guest rooms, and Elena found herself alone with Dominic again, this time in a sitting room with a fireplace and furniture that invited comfort. Thank you, Elena said, curling into a corner of the sofa. For making her feel welcome. For not making this scary for her. Dominic sat beside her, close but not crowding. She's a good kid. You're raising her well. I'm trying. Elena's voice cracked slightly. But I'm so tired, Dominic. I'm tired of being scared. Tired of counting pennies and working 3 jobs and still barely making it. Tired of wondering if Marcus is going to show up and take it all away. His arm came around her shoulders, pulling her against his side. Elena should have resisted, should have maintained distance. Instead, she let herself lean into his warmth, let herself be held for the first time in years. You don't have to be tired anymore, Dominic said quietly. You don't have to do this alone. But what does it cost? Elena asked, voicing her deepest fear. What does accepting your protection, your care, what does it cost me? Dominic was quiet for a long moment. It costs you the illusion of control over your own life. It means accepting that sometimes I'll make decisions to keep you safe without asking first. It means living with the reality that my enemies might try to use you to hurt me. He tilted her chin up so their eyes met. But it also means you'll never have to worry about rent or Lily's future, or whether Marcus can hurt you. It means you can finish your degree. It means Lily can have everything she needs and most of what she wants. It means you get to be more than tired and scared. It means I belong to you, Elena said, testing the words. His expression hardened. No, it means you're with me, by choice. You can leave whenever you want, Elena. I won't stop you. But while you're here, while you're letting me protect you, I need you to trust me. To trust that I'll keep you safe, even when my methods make you uncomfortable. Elena thought about the black SUV that had sat outside her building all night, about Sophia bringing breakfast, about how Dominic's people had intercepted Marcus before he could get anywhere near Lily's school. She thought about the alternative, going back to her apartment, looking over her shoulder, waiting for the inevitable moment when Marcus broke through her defenses. She thought about the red heels and the courage they represented. Sometimes, courage meant charging forward. Sometimes it meant accepting help from someone powerful enough to keep the monsters at bay. Okay, Elena whispered. We'll stay. For now. Dominic's relief was palpable. His arms tightened around her briefly before he released her. I'll have someone collect your things from the apartment tomorrow, whatever you need. And we'll need to talk about security protocols. About... Not tonight, Elena interrupted. Tonight, I just want to check on Lily and then sleep without being afraid. His smile was soft. Then that's what you'll do. Maria prepared the room next to Lily's for you. Everything you need should be there, but if it's not, just ask. Elena stood, suddenly overwhelmed by the enormity of what she'd just agreed to. Dominic? Why are you really doing this? There are 1,000 women in Chicago who would be grateful for your protection. Why me? He stood as well, moving into her space with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what he wanted. Because when you walked into my club in those red heels, terrified but determined, I saw something I thought was extinct. Real courage that hasn't been corrupted by survival. Because you could have given up 12 times, but you keep fighting for your daughter, for your future, for yourself. His hand cupped her face. And because when I look at you, I feel something I haven't felt in years. Something that makes me want to be better than what I am. And what's that? Elena breathed. Hope, he said simply. Then he kissed her, and it was nothing like Elena expected. It wasn't possessive or demanding. It was gentle, questioning, giving her every opportunity to pull away. His lips moved against hers with a tenderness that made her chest ache, made her want to believe that maybe, just maybe, this could be real. When he pulled back, his eyes searched hers. Go check on Lily. Sleep. Tomorrow we'll figure out the rest. Elena nodded, her lips still tingling, her heart racing. She made it to the doorway before turning back. Dominic, thank you. For everything. His smile was slow and real. Thank you for wearing the red heels, Elena. Thank you for being brave enough to let me see you. Elena found Lily already asleep in a bedroom that looked like something from a fairy tale. Soft pink walls, a canopy bed, toys carefully arranged on shelves. Maria had stayed with her until she fell asleep, and now the housekeeper smiled at Elena from the doorway. She's precious, Maria said softly. It's nice to have a child in this house again. Again? Elena asked. Maria's expression turned sad. Mr. Russo had a younger sister. She died when he was 16. This was her room. The revelation hit Elena like a physical blow. Dominic had given Lily his dead sister's room, had surrounded her with toys and comfort and safety in a space that must hold painful memories for him. He never talks about her, Maria continued. But I've worked for this family for 30 years. I remember how much he loved her, how he tried to protect her from their father's world. She looked at Elena with knowing eyes. You're good for him, Miss Martinez. He's been alone too long. After Maria left, Elena stood in the doorway of her own room, a space decorated in soft grays and cream, with a fireplace and a sitting area, and windows that overlooked the garden. It was bigger than her entire apartment. More beautiful than anywhere she'd ever lived. She should have felt grateful. Should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt like she'd stepped into a fairy tale written by the Brothers Grimm, beautiful on the surface, but with danger lurking in every shadow. Her phone, the black one, buzzed with a message from Dominic. Sleep well, Elena. You're safe here. You'll always be safe here. D. Elena looked at the text for a long moment, then typed a response. Your sister's room? You gave Lily your sister's room. The reply came quickly. Sophia would have wanted someone to love it again. Good night, Elena. Elena set the phone aside and moved to the window. In the reflection, she could see herself, tired, uncertain, wearing borrowed clothes and standing in a room that cost more than she made in a year. But she was here. She and Lily were safe. And for the first time since Marcus had put his hands around her throat 3 years ago, Elena allowed herself to believe that maybe safety was possible, even if it came with complications, even if it came from a man whose world was built on danger, even if accepting his protection meant accepting him, all of him, darkness and all. Outside, security lights illuminated the grounds, guards patrolled with subtle efficiency. Gates and walls and cameras created layers of protection that would keep the monsters outside. But Elena couldn't shake the feeling that the most dangerous thing in her life now wasn't Marcus. It was falling for the man who'd noticed her red heels and decided she was worth protecting. Elena woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the disorienting luxury of thousand-thread-count sheets. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then reality crashed back. Dominic's house, his protection, the decision she'd made to stay. The choice that had felt right last night now seemed impossibly complicated in the harsh light of morning. She found Lily already awake and eating breakfast in the sunny kitchen with Maria, chattering about the swimming pool and whether there were fish in the pond she'd seen from her window. Elena's heart clenched at how easily her daughter had adapted, how quickly this palace had become an adventure instead of something frightening. Mama! Lily's face lit up. Miss Maria says I don't have to go to school today. Can we really stay home? Elena looked to Maria, who smiled apologetically. Mr. Russo thought it would be safer to keep her here until certain matters are resolved. He's arranged for a tutor to come this afternoon. Of course he had. Dominic was already making decisions about Lily's life, rearranging their world to fit his version of safety. Elena should have been grateful. Instead, she felt control slipping through her fingers like water. Where is Dominic? Elena asked, pouring herself coffee from a pot that was probably worth more than her monthly rent. His office. He's been on the phone since 6. Maria's expression turned knowing. He didn't sleep much. I don't think he's slept well since you came into his life, Miss Martinez. You've awakened something in him that's been dormant for a very long time. Before Elena could respond, Sophia appeared in the doorway, her expression serious. Miss Martinez, Mr. Russo would like to see you. It's about Marcus. Elena's blood turned cold. She kissed Lily's forehead, promised they'd swim later, and followed Sophia through the mansion to Dominic's office, a masculine space of dark wood and leather that smelled of expensive cologne and old books. Dominic sat behind a massive desk, his phone pressed to his ear, his expression harder than Elena had seen it. When he noticed her, something softened in his eyes, but only briefly. He ended his call and stood. We have a problem, he said without preamble. Marcus knows you're here. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. How? He followed one of my cars yesterday. Got close enough to see Lily. Dominic's jaw tightened. He also sent a message to you. He held out his phone. On the screen was a text from an unknown number. You can't hide from me, Elena. You and Lily belong with me. If I can't have you, no one will. Tell your rich boyfriend he can't protect you forever. Elena's hands trembled as she read it. The threats were familiar. Marcus had said similar things before, when his control over her had started slipping, but now they carried new weight because now she had something to lose. Someone. What do we do? She asked, hating how small her voice sounded. Dominic moved around the desk, taking her hands in his. I handle it. Today. Permanently. The way he said permanently sent ice down Elena's spine. What does that mean? His eyes held hers, dark and unflinching. It means Marcus stops being a threat, one way or another. Elena pulled her hands free, pacing to the window. The beautiful grounds stretched before her, safety maintained by walls and guards and the power of the man standing behind her. But that power came with a price, and she was beginning to understand exactly what that price was. "You're going to kill him," she said flatly. Dominic's silence was answer enough. Elena turned to face him. "And if I ask you not to? Then I'll find another way," he said quietly. "But Elena, you need to understand something. Men like Marcus don't stop. Prison didn't stop him. A restraining order didn't stop him. Fear of consequences doesn't stop him because he's convinced himself he's entitled to you, that you're his property." "I'm not property," Elena said fiercely. "Not his. Not yours." "I know." Dominic crossed to her, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "That's the difference between us, Elena. Marcus wants to own you. I want to protect you. But protection in my world sometimes requires methods that people in your world find uncomfortable." "Uncomfortable?" Elena's laugh was bitter. "You're talking about murder, Dominic. That's not uncomfortable. That's crossing a line I'm not sure I can come back from." His expression didn't change. "I've crossed that line many times before. For business, for survival, for revenge." His voice softened. "But this would be different. This would be for you. To keep you and Lily safe. To give you a future without fear." Elena wanted to argue, wanted to insist there had to be another way. But 3 years of looking over her shoulder, 3 years of jumping at shadows, 3 years of wondering when Marcus would finally make good on his threats. Those years had taught her that sometimes the world didn't offer clean solutions. Sometimes safety required someone willing to get their hands dirty. "I don't know if I can be with someone who kills for me," Elena whispered. Pain flashed across Dominic's face, quickly hidden. "I understand. And if that's your choice, I'll respect it. But Elena, whether you're with me or not, Marcus still poses a threat. He's fixated on you. He's escalating. And eventually, he's going to try something that my men might not be able to stop in time." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying I'll handle Marcus regardless of what you decide about us. But I need you to understand what that means. I need you to make a choice with your eyes open." He cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. "I'm not a good man, Elena. I've done terrible things. But everything I do now, I do to protect what's mine. And you and Lily, you're mine to protect, even if you never become mine in any other way." The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it sparked something dangerous in Elena's chest, the treacherous thought that maybe being claimed by someone who would kill to keep her safe wasn't the worst thing that could happen. "I need time," Elena said finally, "to think, to process all of this." Dominic nodded, releasing her. "Take the day. Stay here where you're safe. Spend time with Lily. But Elena?" His eyes held hers. "I'm handling Marcus today. I won't let him threaten you anymore." Elena spent the morning swimming with Lily, watching her daughter's joy as she splashed in the heated pool, Maria sitting nearby with towels and snacks. It felt surreal. This borrowed life, this glimpse of what wealth and safety could provide. But underneath the sunshine and laughter, Elena's mind churned. What kind of life was she choosing if she stayed? What kind of man was Dominic really? And could she live with herself if she accepted protection that came with blood on its hands? The tutor arrived after lunch, a kind woman in her 30s who had Lily engaged in educational games within minutes. Elena retreated to the library, trying to lose herself in books, trying not to think about what Dominic was doing, where he was, whether Marcus was already dead. She found herself drawn to the family photographs scattered throughout the room. Dominic as a boy, serious-eyed even then. A beautiful woman who must have been his mother. And a little girl with dark curls and a gap-toothed smile, Sophia, the sister who'd died too young, whose room now belonged to Lily. "She was 8 when she died," came Dominic's voice from the doorway. Elena turned, startled. He looked different, tired, with shadows under his eyes and tension in his shoulders, but he was there, whole and alive, and relief flooded through her so powerfully it made her dizzy. "What happened to her?" Elena asked softly. Dominic moved into the room, picking up the photograph with gentle hands. "My father's enemies took her. Thought they could use her as leverage against him." His voice was carefully flat. "They miscalculated. My father didn't negotiate, didn't give them what they wanted, said it would show weakness." Elena's heart broke for the boy he'd been. "And you?" "I was 16, old enough to understand what my father was, what his world demanded, old enough to know that loving something in our world makes it a target." He set the photo down, his eyes meeting Elena's. "Old enough to promise myself I'd never have that kind of vulnerability again." "Until me," Elena said quietly. "Until you," he agreed. "Until I saw a woman brave enough to wear red heels on the day she was most afraid. Until I understood that some vulnerabilities are worth the risk." Elena moved closer, drawn by the raw honesty in his voice. "What happened today? With Marcus?" Dominic's expression hardened. "He's not dead, if that's what you're asking. But he's leaving Chicago. Tonight. With enough money to start over somewhere far from here and a very clear understanding of what happens if he ever comes back." Elena stared at him. "You paid him off? After everything he did to me?" "I gave him a choice," Dominic corrected. "Take the money and disappear, or face consequences that would make prison look merciful. He chose the money." His eyes searched hers. "I know you wanted him punished. Part of me wanted that too. But I thought maybe you'd prefer he just ceased to exist in your life without blood being spilled." The gesture hit Elena with unexpected force. Dominic had been willing to kill for her, but he'd also been willing to show mercy because he understood it might matter to her. Because her feelings, her morality, her comfort with his methods, they mattered to him more than his own desire for vengeance. "Thank you," Elena whispered. "Don't thank me yet. The choice came with conditions he'll regret if he breaks them." Dominic's hand came up to cup her face. "But for you, for Lily, I was willing to try the cleaner option first. If he comes back, though—" "I know," Elena interrupted. "If he comes back, you'll do what you have to do." They stood there, inches apart, the weight of everything unspoken hanging between them. Elena saw herself reflected in Dominic's eyes, saw the woman she'd become over the past few days. Stronger, braver, someone who could accept protection without surrendering herself completely. "I want to stay," Elena said finally. "Not just because I'm afraid of Marcus, not just because you can provide security and comfort, but because when I'm with you, I feel like I can breathe for the first time in years." Dominic's expression transformed, hope and relief, and something deeper flooding his features. "Elena, but I have conditions," she continued firmly. "I'm not going to be someone you make decisions for without consulting. I'm not going to be kept in the dark about your world. And I'm going to finish my degree and figure out what I want to do with my life, beyond being protected by you." A slow smile spread across his face. "Are you negotiating with me, Elena Martinez?" "Yes," she said, lifting her chin. "Is that a problem?" His laugh was genuine and warm. "Not even slightly. In fact, it's exactly what I hoped for." He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. "I don't want to own you, Elena. I want to partner with you." Build something real with you. Give Lily a life where she never has to be afraid. And what do you get out of this partnership? Elena asked, her hands resting against his chest, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady beneath her palms. Everything, Dominic said simply. I get to come home to someone who sees me as more than what I do or what I can provide. I get to watch Lily grow up safe and happy. I get to be the man who makes you smile instead of the man who scares you. His voice dropped lower. And I get to be loved by someone good. Someone who might make me believe I can be better than what I was raised to become. Elena's breath caught. You want me to love you? I want you to try, he said, vulnerability naked in his eyes. I want the chance to earn it, to show you that despite everything I am and everything I've done, I can be worthy of you. The confession broke something open inside Elena. This powerful, dangerous man was asking her, begging her, for the chance to be loved. Not owned, not possessed. Loved. She rose on her toes and kissed him, pouring everything she couldn't yet say into the press of her lips against his. Gratitude and desire, and the first fragile shoots of something that might become love, given time and trust and patience. Dominic's arms tightened around her, and for a long moment, they simply held each other while the afternoon sun streamed through the library windows, and somewhere in the house, Lily laughed at something her tutor said. This was real, Elena thought. This choice, this man, this terrifying and exhilarating leap into a life she'd never imagined possible. We should tell Lily, Elena said finally, pulling back slightly, that we're staying, that this is going to be her home now. Dominic's smile was soft. She's going to have opinions about her room. Maria mentioned she wants the walls painted purple. Elena laughed, the sound bright and genuine. She's 5. Everything needs to be purple or sparkly or both. Then we'll make it purple and sparkly, Dominic said, as if redecorating a dead sister's room was the easiest thing in the world. Whatever makes her happy. Whatever makes you both feel like this is home. 3 weeks later, Elena stood in front of the full-length mirror in what had become her bedroom, though increasingly, she found herself waking up in Dominic's bed, tangled in his sheets and his arms. Tonight was important. Tonight, Dominic was introducing her to his business associates at a formal dinner at Sapphire. She'd chosen the red heels, of course. They'd become her armor, her reminder of courage, her connection to her mother and to the woman she was becoming. The dress was new, emerald silk that hugged her curves and made her hazel eyes look almost green. Dominic had insisted on buying it, and Elena had let him, understanding now that his gifts weren't about control, but about wanting to see her draped in beautiful things. You look stunning, came his voice from the doorway. Elena turned to find him watching her with an expression that made heat curl through her stomach. He was devastating in a black tuxedo, his dark hair perfectly styled, his jaw freshly shaved. But it was his eyes that captivated her, the way they softened when he looked at her, the way desire and tenderness and something deeper mixed in their depths. I'm nervous, Elena admitted. These people, your world, I'm not sure I know how to navigate it. Dominic crossed to her, his hands settling on her waist. You navigate it by being exactly who you are. Smart, brave, genuine. They'll love you or fear you or want to be you, but they'll respect you because you're with me. Because I'm yours, Elena said, testing the words. His eyes darkened. Because you chose to be mine. There's a difference, Elena. One is ownership. The other is partnership. She'd learned that difference over the past 3 weeks. Learned that Dominic consulted her before making decisions that affected her life. Learned that he valued her opinion, her intelligence, her perspective. Learned that protection didn't have to mean suffocation. Lily's asleep, Elena said. Maria's staying with her. Good. Dominic's hand came up to cup her face. Because after this dinner, I have something to ask you. Something important. Elena's heart stuttered. What is it? His smile was mysterious. After the dinner. First, let me show you off to Chicago's elite. Let me watch them realize that the woman in the red heels is untouchable because she's mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have bothered her. Instead, it sent a thrill through her system. The knowledge that this powerful man claimed her not as property, but as partner. Not as possession, but as choice. They arrived at Sapphire to find the Platinum Room transformed for the dinner. 50 guests, Chicago's power players, politicians and businessmen and women who moved through the world with the confidence of people who knew they were untouchable. Marco greeted them at the door, his eyes widening when he saw Elena on Dominic's arm. Miss Martinez, Mr. Russo, everything is prepared. Elena felt the weight of every eye in the room as they entered. She held her head high, her hand resting on Dominic's arm, the red heels clicking against the polished floor with each step. They'd noticed. All of them had noticed. The woman who'd been invisible 3 months ago was now the center of attention, and she wore it like a crown. Dinner was a blur of conversations and introductions, of navigating social dynamics and unspoken power plays. Elena fielded questions about her background with careful honesty, deflected nosiness with polite firmness, and discovered she was better at this than she'd expected. These people weren't so different from the customers she'd served for years. They just had more money and better clothes. Halfway through the main course, a woman in diamonds approached their table. Elena recognized her from one of the early dinners, the one who'd called her the help. Dominic, the woman purred. I had no idea your relationship with Miss Martinez was so serious. Very serious, Catherine, Dominic said smoothly. In fact, I was just about to make an announcement. Elena's heart stopped. An announcement? Dominic stood, drawing every eye in the room. If I could have everyone's attention. The room fell silent. Elena's hands trembled in her lap as Dominic pulled her to her feet beside him. 3 months ago, Dominic began, a woman walked into my club wearing red heels and courage I hadn't seen in years. She was afraid but showed up anyway. She was struggling but never complained. She was everything I thought had been destroyed by the world I live in. Genuine goodness, real strength, authentic bravery. His hand found hers, squeezing gently. Elena Martinez changed my life the moment I noticed those red heels. And tonight, in front of all of you, I want to make it clear that she's not just someone I'm protecting. She's not just someone I care for. She's my partner, my equal, and if she'll have me, she'll be my wife. The room exploded in murmurs, but Elena barely heard them. She was staring at Dominic, at the vulnerability in his eyes, at the small velvet box he'd produced from his pocket. I know it's fast, Dominic said, his voice lowering so only she could hear. I know we're still learning each other, but Elena, I'm certain of you in a way I've never been certain of anything. You make me want to be better. You make me believe redemption is possible. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of the gift you've given me by choosing to stay. He opened the box, revealing a ring that took Elena's breath away, an emerald surrounded by diamonds, clearly an antique, clearly priceless. It was my grandmother's, Dominic said. The only member of my family who believed love could exist in our world. She'd want you to have it. Elena's eyes filled with tears. Around them, the entire room waited, breathless. The woman who'd been invisible, who'd served them drinks and cleaned up their messes, was being offered a fairy tale in front of their eyes. Yes, Elena whispered. Then louder. Yes. Dominic's smile was incandescent. He slid the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms and kissed her. deep and possessive and full of promise. The room erupted in applause, but Elena barely heard it. She was too busy kissing the man who'd noticed her red heels and decided she was worth building a life around. Later that night, after the celebration had ended and they'd returned home, Elena found Lily sitting on the stairs in her pajamas, clearly having snuck out of bed. "Mama?" Lily's voice was small. "Are you and Mr. Dominic getting married?" Elena sat beside her daughter, pulling her close. "Yes, baby. We are. How do you feel about that?" Lily was quiet for a moment, her small face serious. "Does that mean we get to stay here? In the palace?" "Yes," Elena said, her throat tight. "This is our home now, if you want it to be." Lily's face split into a huge smile. "Can I call him Daddy?" Elena's heart clenched. She looked up to find Dominic standing in the hallway, his expression vulnerable and hopeful in a way that made her fall in love with him all over again. "You'll have to ask him," Elena said softly. Lily scrambled down the stairs and ran to Dominic, who knelt down to her level. "Mr. Dominic, can I call you Daddy now, if you're going to be Mama's husband?" Dominic's eyes filled with tears he didn't try to hide. "I'd be honored, sweetheart. I'd be so honored." Lily threw her arms around his neck, and Dominic held her like she was precious, like she was fragile, like she was exactly what he'd been missing all his life. Elena watched them together, her daughter and the man who'd become her protector, her partner, her love, and felt something settle in her soul. This was real. This was family. This was the life she'd been fighting toward without knowing what she was fighting for. Later, after Lily was back in bed, Elena stood on the balcony of the master bedroom, looking out at the grounds lit by moonlight and security lights. Dominic came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. "Having second thoughts?" he asked quietly. "Not even one," Elena said, turning in his arms. "Though I do have a question." "Anything?" "The red heels. Did you really notice them first? Or did you already know who I was? That I was Antonio Russo's granddaughter?" Dominic smiled, caught. "I knew who you were before you walked into Sapphire that first night. I'd been tracking you since you came to Chicago, making sure you were safe, that Marcus hadn't found you. But Elena?" His hand cupped her face. "The red heels were real. The moment I saw you wearing your courage on your feet despite being terrified, that's when I stopped watching you as an obligation to my father's memory and started watching you because I couldn't look away." Elena kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. "Thank you for noticing. Thank you for seeing me when I was trying so hard to be invisible." "You could never be invisible," Dominic said against her lips. "Not to me. Not in those heels." They stood together under the stars, two people from different worlds who'd found each other because of red heels and courage, and the understanding that sometimes safety comes from the most unexpected places. And in the morning, Elena would wake up in silk sheets and swim with her daughter in a heated pool. She'd work on her degree while Lily played in a purple, sparkly room that had been transformed with love. She'd learn to navigate Dominic's world while keeping her feet firmly planted in who she was. But tonight, she was simply a woman in red heels, held by a man who'd noticed them and decided she was worth protecting, worth cherishing, worth building an empire around. Sometimes, courage meant showing up when you were terrified. Sometimes it meant accepting help from someone powerful enough to keep the monsters at bay. And sometimes it meant believing that you were worthy of love, protection, and red heels that made you visible to exactly the right person. Elena Martinez had learned all three, and she'd never be invisible again. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.